Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose. Affirmative.
Okay, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the greatest show on earth. As I tell you, you're not going to get this information anywhere else. It's taboo. It is not allowed. There's no freedom of press in America. How are you today? Greg Anthony here on the Investigative Journal, giving you valuable information that you can take to anyone and tell them you know how the world operates. Yes, the Vatican-led New World Order, all its tentacles. Every day we talk about this subject, and over the years I have done shows on every aspect of the Vatican-led New World Order. And what has it led to? Many people have called me and say, how can I get out of being a U.S. federal citizen, this corporate citizen? And I said, well, let's look into it. So we started looking into it, and there were so many stories on the internet and other places like, oh, you got to write a letter to the Queen. Oh, you can just write a letter and denounce your citizenship. But nothing is farther from the truth, because from the time you are born until the time you die, unless you break every link in that chain of corporate citizenship, they got you by the you-know-what. And so over the years, I found out that it is very difficult. These people who have created this federal system, this corporate system, and I'm not going to get into all the technicalities of how Washington, D.C. is set up, but I do want to say that it isn't easy. And if it was easy, I would have done it a long time ago. Not many people have, really. I met one person, and he had a number of people that did it, but it is so hard that you might want to reconsider. Or my goal, if you really don't like America, just get the hell out and go somewhere else if you can find a better place. Don't go to the Dominican Republic now. Wow. Do you hear what's going on there? Yeah, Americans are falling dead after drinking from the minibar. And there's been 6 or 7 in the last month that have dropped dead in 2 resorts in the Dominican. And one of the biggest rich billionaires of the Dominican who runs tourism there said it's because Americans eat and drink too much. But there's an investigation going on now, and we'll get to the bottom of it when the toxicology reports come out. But the Dominican Republic, right next to Haiti, is under investigation. Also, if you know anything about baseball, Big Papi, David Ortiz, was a great baseball player for Boston. He was just shot in the stomach in the Dominican. He retired a year or so ago. Great ball player, and I wish him the best. I guess he's recovering. However, the topic of discussion, how to break the chains and become a sovereign citizen. If you want to do it, let me tell you, it's not easy, because you have to break every link in that chain. Not just get rid of your Social Security, not just get rid of this, your driver's license, not just get rid, you got to do it all. And that's what makes it difficult, because if you got one remaining tie, they got you. And that's why you don't hear about that in all these patriot movements. And a lot of people take your money on the internet for crazy things, so don't listen to it. I'm going to give you the straight and narrow. And to do that, I have to go back to the best of Greg and do a show I did years ago with a guy by the name of Terry Lee. Now, I found over researching this subject that he had the most incredible program, the real way to do it, to become a sovereign state citizen of your state, in his case it was Washington. And why don't we take a journey back, but it's still applicable. Boy, that's a tough word to say when you're talking fast like me. But it still applies. You still applies, Greg. That's a lot easier. It still applies today, even though the interview was done a number of years ago. But anyway, I hope you'll see my point that it is not easy to break the chain of being a corporate citizen of the United States government. And we're all tied to it. Terry Lee got out of it. He shows you how in this interview that I am going to play for you for the remainder of the show. Thank God we can still do this now, because pretty soon these big corporate places like Amazon, Google, Twitter, all these things are going to consume us so we won't have any freedoms left. That's the big problem here. And they're working together with big government, working together with the Jesuits in the Vatican to stop us. But we will prevail. We will prevail. Because if you know the truth, if you're willing to get down to the bottom of it, willing to understand that it's going to break every belief system you've ever had, whether it be spiritual or political, anything about your country that you believe, anything about the world that you believe, don't believe it. They've lied to you even about the shape of your earth. And I'm convinced of that. They also lied to you about going to the moon. They also lied to you about there being a Jupiter or Mars. They've lied to you about there being satellites. They've lied to you about most everything. And I tell you what, people believe it. Because as Hitler said, who was Hitler's mentor? Pope Pius XII. As Hitler said, the bigger the lie, the more people will believe it. Well, we're going to give you the truth today about if you want to break the chains that bind you, because I said after the 14th Amendment was passed, we all became slaves. This is how you do it. If not, and you find it more difficult, like I have found it, then you just want to leave the country maybe. It's up to you. It's up to you. Because pretty soon, do you know what's going to hit the fan? And I see it coming because you see these trumpets of socialism sounding now in the Democratic Party. They call it democratic socialism. Well, who created socialism? That were the Jesuits in the Paraguay experiments in the 1600s. So don't you think they know a little bit about it? Don't you think Bernie works for them? Yes. Or Cortez, that new congresswoman who was talking about socialism, don't you think she works for them? Yes. But today, let's take a breather from all those things and just listen to what Terry Lee has to say about becoming a sovereign citizen of the state you were born in, not the federal government.
Terry Lee, this is a great story. Terry, I've had him on once before, months and months ago, and people always stream in with so many questions. And so we got Terry Lee. Terry, how are you today?
Doing real good, Greg.
Thank you. I'm sorry, I know you're on the road, and I had a time switch on my show, and I gave you the wrong time, and I apologize.
Okay, I'm stationary now, so we can go ahead.
Okay, great. Terry Lee's his name. And Terry, what I started doing a couple of years ago is I started looking legally. I have a legal degree, which doesn't mean beans when you talk about this, because this is something they don't teach in law schools. In fact, they teach the opposite. Terry will tell you that. So I became enlightened by Terry Lee one time when I met him. He sat for hours giving a speech, and we talked. And as I looked into this, I'd been looking into many different fraction groups that have started patriot movements to basically opt out of America. You don't want to be a part of it. Here's how you do it. Don't get license plates. You don't get a Social Security card. You don't need to pay taxes. You don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. And there were so many of them, I never could quite understand what to do. Well, I finally met a man who put it all together. And let me tell you this. From my humble opinion, I think it's probably the best one in the United States. If you're ever thinking about basically opting out how do you say it, Terry? What are you opting out of? Why don't you tell us?
Well, you're opting out of being a slave is what you're doing, but you still want to participate. But you want to participate with acknowledgement and recognition of who you are and what you are instead of what they presume you are.
Okay, go ahead. Tell us that. So you want to get down to who you really are and what the government calls you, right? Difference.
You're born a sovereign, but as soon as they sign the registration of birth and send it off to the state, and then your parents give you a Social Security number, you become, instead of a sovereign state citizen, you become a U.S. corporation citizen. Now, where that come from? Before Lincoln, there was no such thing as the terminology of a citizen of the United States. It didn't exist. You were a citizen of one of the sovereign states, okay? And so, when they got done with the so-called Civil War, Lincoln's War, they purchased all the black slaves for $1 million, and then they had to have some place for them to go, citizenship. So, all the original colonies were for white immigrants coming over from Europe, and they wouldn't give the black slaves citizenship. So they created a corporation on February 24th, 1871, called the District of Columbia, a.k.a. United States. And they made the black slaves then citizens of that state, that 10-square-mile area. And then they forced all the states into signing the 13th and 14th Amendment, anti-servitude and civil rights and all that. And they said, now you have to recognize our citizens of the District of Columbia as equal to your citizens of the state. In other words, they can come into your sovereign state and be citizens there and residents and all that because they have citizenship in this United States. And so they forced the states into that. Well, then comes along all these contracts. Main one with Roosevelt and them when they did the Social Security contract, and it's not an insurance deal, it's a binding contract making you lose your sovereign state citizenship and become a citizen of the corporation, District of Columbia, aka United States. When they formed that corporation, they adopted the Constitution for the United States as the word of the United States, as a set of bylaws, and as a mere statute. Then when they pass all these superior statutes, they supersede the mere statute. So that's why you don't have any constitutional rights in court, because the Constitution is just a mere statute under the District of Columbia, aka United States. So now with all these benefits and privileges of being a U.S. corporation citizen, everybody, 99.99% of the people are inside that realm, inside that capacity, inside that citizenship. And so when you go to court, it's automatically assumed and presumed that you're one of their people that they have jurisdiction over. Because all of the states have an overlapping federalized district federal government overlapping the sovereign state government, and so the counties and cities all become municipal corporations. Municipal meaning military rule. We're still under the martial law that Lincoln set in place, Executive Order 100, and all the states are under this whole thing. So when you sign up to be what you call a suffragee of their fiction, the all-capital letter name, you now are basically a U.S. corporation citizen inside of state.
And you become that citizen, that corporate citizen, without any say in the matter, through birth, by your parents signing you on, right?
Well, yeah, your parents don't know what they're doing, don't understand what's happened here. It's all a switch in time. It's all a loss of what they call legal memory of the original sovereign state. Now, there's a new book out now. The book's out by Richard Hagley from Walla Walla and 3 other gentlemen that are in the movement here to find out. They have done serious research, and they've come up with the actual Supreme Court cases that did the switch in time. And you caught me without the book here. I'm going to call you back later and give you the address to where to buy the book. But if anybody wants to find out exactly how step by step this whole thing came down, how they did the whole switch in time, how Roosevelt threatened the U.S. Supreme Court that he was going to fire all of them, replace all them if they didn't do what he said once he went into power in 1933. Then 5 justices voted his way or voted as dissenting. And you have to read the dissenting opinions on these court cases to understand where how the whole thing got switched unconstitutionally.
And that's a good point for any of you researchers out there who haven't had formal legal education. Read the dissenting opinions. They're very important. We'll be back, Terry. That's good information. I want to get back to some of the personal decisions you made and telling all our listeners what I think is the best way to become a sovereign citizen, not a corporate citizen. We'll be back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal. Okay, we're back with Terry Lee. And Terry, you said at the outset of the show that you wanted to denounce being a slave to this corporate citizenship. If you didn't have any other background information, why don't you tell us step by step, if somebody came to you and said, listen, I want to follow your program, how would you get them started?
Well, I don't want to get the impression that I'm putting women down, but if you're a man and you're married and you have children, you have a multitude of contracts with the system, and it becomes very hard to get out of the system. The single man, a single woman can do so much easier. The family lifestyle, because of public schools, because of a number of things, it's a lot harder. It's not that it can't be done, it's just it takes some serious persistence. And,
well, let's just start with the simplistic version of not being a slave.
Let's say that you're a single man or woman, and you want to play with the corporate state, but you want the corporate state to acknowledge who you are outside their system. Okay? Mm-hmm. So what I did was I start my own private court case in the court of record in your county. There's over 3,000 counties in this country. What that means is that you go in for a non-adversarial court case. It becomes your court case for the rest of your life in that county, as long as you live there, to adjudicate facts and evidence.
And I think the key word there is non-adversarial.
Absolutely.
Okay, go ahead.
So you turn in a petition, but no summons, because you're not summoning anybody. What you're doing is seeking court acknowledgement and adjudication. It is ordered and adjudged that this is true, this is true, this is true, okay? Mm-hmm. And so you create this record of evidence of court orders of facts that you establish prior to going in court, and then the court just acknowledges them by court order. And so the first thing I did was my name. And I took all the paperwork for doing a legal name change, and I formatted it in for an acknowledgement of existing true Christian name. And then when I got done turning that paperwork in, the judge reviewed it. He says, here you go. I said, is that spelled upper lowercase? He said, that's spelled upper lowercase. He says, you can have any name you want. And I said, I just want it on the record that what I'm doing is seeking acknowledgement of the name I've had for years and years, my existing name. He says, here you go. Well, I turned in enough paperwork, enough evidence, along with the 5-page brief to accomplish that. And then from there, I went into voter registration.
Now, before we go on to the voter registration, you do have a copy of that you provide to people so they can do basically the exact same program.
That's correct.
Okay, good. Let's move on.
Okay, then a lot of people say, well, I'm not going to be a voter because you're just a statutory voter and all that. Well, I broke that in the state of Washington. I had to go all the way up to the head Attorney General's office to get a 4-page opinion written by them on what I was doing, and it took me 3 years to hammer that in, but I made it happen. And so when you look in the voting records in Stevens County, Washington State, it has my name, Terry Lee, spelled in upper lowercase, the location spelled in upper lowercase, no WAZIP, no federal zone, no zip code, and it states that I'm a sovereign elector for the state of Washington. Whereas the rest of them are in all capital letters, last name first, legal address, the zip code, which is a federal zone, they're all that way except for mine. And the record shows that I've got copies, certified copies of that from there.
So you just want your name in upper lowercase and where you reside. Your address.
Well, yeah, domicile, yes.
Okay.
Residence is a bad word, but
right.
Anyway, so that's one thing that you do, and then we're going through court also for capacity. Your capacity is you're a sovereign state citizen, not a U.S. corporation citizen, not a 14th Amendment person, okay? And so you have a series of these court hearings that you set up,
Now this is the third step. We had the name change, the voter change, and now third one is
then
what?
You want capacity. Your capacity of what you are. They call it status. And your status is your one of their white slaves, or whatever color you are, and that's the way it is. So all these people that come into this country from foreign countries, they say, you want to be a U.S. citizen? Oh, yeah, well, we'll make you a U.S. slave, no problem. So that's what they do. That's what INS does.
Okay. And now you're trying to get capacity and change yourself from a slave to a free man, so to speak.
Okay. You got to bear in mind that I have a court case that states by a Superior Court judge that you have a right to be a U.S. corporation citizen or not be one every day of the year. You can opt in, you can opt out. You can opt in, you can opt out. And it's all done by contract. So when we say contract, we're talking to signature. So going on to signature, everything in the contract world is done by a signature. That is the bond, that's the guarantee, that's the verification, is the signature.
Okay, I think we're going to leave it right there. Let us take a 3-minute break, and then we'll come back with the importance of your John Hancock on the Investigative Journal. Back in 3 minutes.
Okay, we're back here in 2019, and that was Terry Lee, and we got about 3 minutes before I have to take a 2019 break. That was a break we took way back when we did that interview. But I think you're seeing the point here. Terry gave a great explanation of what the United States politicians did after Lincoln, after the slaves were supposedly emancipated. What they basically did is they made everybody corporate slaves. And you see that you're nothing but a bill of lading when you're born, the birth certificate, etc., etc. And what Terry is trying to tell you is that, and we're going to get this in the second half hour, is that the proper way to break these bonds isn't easy. And he mentioned it very simply that it's easier for a single man and a single woman to do it. But it's not impossible if you're married and have children. But it's very difficult because you have to break, I'm trying to make it simple, every little connection and contract that you have with them in order to basically free yourself and be a free man living in this corporate state. And Terry runs a business. He has a construction company, but how he does business without a bank account and everything is quite interesting, and he gets into that. And I'll try to get it all in, and I don't think I can get it all in the next half hour. But anyway, you can contact me at gregbeacon@gmail.com, and I'll send you a copy of that interview. And in fact, maybe I'll stick it on my website after this interview, and you can listen to it in its entirety. And also, reflect on what he said about those court cases. They're very important because it's even recognized in the United States Supreme Court and what he's talking about. And also the dissenting opinions. So we're looking at a system that seems to be, I want to be a United States citizen, but do you really want to be one? I think I'd rather be a free sovereign citizen, but it's not easy. And that's why don't fall prey to all these people on the internet who say, I can get you out of the system, and they give you all these lectures and you pay all this money. And really, it's very, very mundane and complicated. It isn't exotic and fun. It's a contracts that need to be broken all the way down to your driver's license, etc., etc. And we're going to get back to more of Terry Lee in the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. In the meantime, go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. If you go to my old website, Arctic Beacon, it's been hijacked. It's not me. We're trying to get it back. Back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, the spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ. This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app. for all of your mobile devices. Streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy Reality News app. Get it now.
Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org. When it comes to prophecy today, much of the evangelical Christian world has their eyes on Israel, waiting and watching to see when the third temple will begin to be built. The plans are drawn, the Jewish people are eager. Most evangelical Christians today believe that the rapture will happen before the third temple is built. Hi, I'm Michael Eugene. I was taught that Daniel's 70th week was in the future. Is that really what the Bible teaches? Have we searched the scriptures and found this to be true? Why is it so important for a re-established Israel to build a third temple in Jerusalem? Is it necessary to build a temple on the same location already occupied by the Dome of the Rock? Is it necessary for sacrifices to take place in the temple on Temple Mount? Is there really a rapture followed by 7 years of tribulation? What is the New Testament temple? Can we identify history and prophecy? Who is the first beast in Revelation chapter 13? Who are the 7 kings in Revelation 17? I have asked all these questions, and I have found Nicholas Arthur's new book, When the Third Temple is Built, answers all these questions and more using Scripture to interpret Scripture. The Bible says that no prophecy of Scripture is of any private interpretation. Nicholas shows us in his new book, When the Third Temple is Built, how the Bible interprets prophecy and not man's private interpretation. Visit crosstheborder.org, CROSS, crosstheborder.org, to get your print, EPUB, or PDF version of Nicholas Arthur's new book titled When the Third Temple is Built. That's crosstheborder.org.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This isn't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour of the Investigative Journal. Like I said, go to my website at greganthonysjournal.wordpress.com. And don't forget to keep the show on the air. You have to donate because the advertisers will not sponsor a show like this. Okay, let's get back to Terry Lee and how to opt out of the U.S. corporate system.
Broken lock, broken string, broken thread, broken spring, broken idols, broken head, people sleeping in broken beds. Ain't no use jiving, ain't no use joking. Everything's broken.
Okay, we're exploring how to become a free man and not a slave. And Terry Lee's giving you the course, a quick 1-hour course on how to do that. Of course, we'll have Terry back with the second part of that in a week or two, but we're going to keep him on for another half hour. And we're on the part of the course called The Importance of Your Signature, and I'm writing mine right now. Gregory Anthony Szymanski, and that's my initials are GAS, G-A-S. Many people think I'm full of hot air, or that I'm quite expensive. Gas is expensive, so either one is fine with me. Terry, I have to get into the importance of signature. Go ahead. Terry?
Okay, the signature is a very important issue, and 2 years ago I started the process of what is called restricted signature. And many people now in our area here have adopted it because it is working. And what that means is that whenever you sign a government document, you put a restricted signature on it. You write the words on there, restricted signature, comma, your name is signed, comma, sui juris, and then at the bottom of it, it says, see annex affidavit / declaration. Okay?
Okay.
And what you do, if you were to go to BLM, Bureau of Land Management, and process and get the original patent on your land, okay? You bring it forward. When you get there, that's on a vellum, and the 2 or 3 pages are put together with a little squeezed together brass piece of tube that bonds those papers together so that they're bound, okay? So that means it's all one document. When you put your affidavit on the back of a document, say a form you filled out with the government, it is normally called attached. So that means it's just hanging there. It's not part of the document. So if you state that it's annexed, it becomes part of the document. All is one piece then, okay? That's what the set of scrolls were done in the old days. I annexed this affidavit, so I put restricted signature on it, and the affidavit says, this signature is good for this, and this, and it is not good for this, and this. In other words, the not this is you have no assumed, presumed, or implied power of attorney to presume that I am a U.S. corporation citizen, that I am a resident or a citizen of any corporate state or anything, that I'm a 14th Amendment person, and on down the line, that you don't give them the power to do with this annexed affidavit, okay? So we've now clarified and we've narrowly construed what the signature is good for, whereas before it was just carte blanche, they could presume anything.
Exactly. And, you know, let me just add something. It may seem tedious to my listeners, but this is a very, very, very important aspect of this whole program. I mean, it sounds elementary, but, man, I'll tell you what, this is something I really, when I listen to you, I want people to listen. In fact, when I have you on the show, I take notes, and I'm on my just like I was when I was in law school. I sit here and write this down because I'll tell you what, I want to remember it. It's more important, I think, than any law school test I ever took. So signature, let's go. I want to hear more of this.
Okay. When you do documents with government agencies, you ask them, do I have to use this document? Or can I create my own document similar to that? And say, yes, you can. There's no requirement to use government documents. They put them there to have some uniform processing procedure in place. But you can create the identical document. For example, on my new CD that has twice as much stuff on it as it was when we first talked months ago, we put on a new, what they call a W-8BN form for the IRS. W-8BN form is for somebody that's a foreigner. So if you become a sovereign state citizen, you're not a U.S. corporation citizen, you've broken the Social Security contract, which you're not involved with anymore, you now become what the IRS calls a non-resident alien. And those have to use what is called a W-8BN form to verify you're not one of their slaves. So we took their form, and the IRS specifically says you don't have to use our form. You can create your own form, but it has to be similar and answer the basic question. So we did that, and we have this new form on this new CD for people that become non-resident aliens to the IRS. Okay? And it still has the restricted signature on it with the annexed affidavit, in narrowly construing what the signature is good for and what it isn't good for, because the signature is everything.
Okay. So you've done. We got through to the signature now. What's the next step?
Well, you have to write down. Let's say that you're somebody that just hears this program for the first time. So, boy, there's a way out. Well, okay. First thing you got to do is go back to when you were as young as you can remember, and come forward and try and remember how many times you got a hunting, fishing license, driver's license, different states, marriage license, and all these contracts, because you really need to terminate these contracts the best you can. There's a bunch of paperwork out there that can help you with that, and we can too. And then you have to break the Social Security contract. My father, for example.
Now, with the other things before we move on to Social Security, you're trying to break all those contracts. Is there any special way to do that?
Well, if you can, you try to get the original document back or a copy of it so that you can nullify it, okay? And rescind the signature on it.
Okay.
Or lack of full disclosure to the terms and conditions of the contract.
Yeah, I guess we can. Yeah, I understand that. So that's an individual decision. Each person at this point, it's step 5 here, as an individual, you must go back and trace the contracts you made and now change your signature on that, or basically restrict.
Put a restricted signature on the new one. Just modify the document with a restricted signature, which then expressly tells what the signature is good for on that particular contract. So.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Now let's go to the important steps here. The Social Security card, that comes up all the time. How do you handle that?
Well, a lot of the people that have turned in and said, we want to stop that, terminate it, we don't want to be a party to it, and they say, well, sorry, it's a lifetime contract, you can't do nothing about it, goodbye. And but there is a procedure for doing that, and what we have is a 47-page brief that gets the point across to the Social Security Department, again with a restricted signature, clarifying who and what you are and all that, and you just basically go in and terminate the contract. And the Social Security Department, if you look up their website and pull up the 521 form, it's their form for canceling the contract, called the 521 form.
Okay, everybody out there, remember that. If you want to cancel your security card, 521 form.
We're taking that form and we're recreating a new form that makes it more lawful instead of legal, so that it really exemplifies who and what you are, okay? Along with the restricted signature and the annexed affidavit. And so it's not just a simple process. You have to understand how you got to where you are, because of your parents and the schooling we had and all that. Then you got to terminate or readdress the signature on these contracts, modify that with this new restricted signature and annexed affidavit, and then you do the Social Security the same way. And now you're a free man, so that every time that you now deal with the government, you got to give them notice that that's where you're at, that you're coming in to their world, their system, their corporation by special appearance, not general, by way of special visitation, not general visitation. Okay. And you're here maintaining this capacity with this restricted signature every time you deal with them. For example, now that I'm outside the system, I'm still buying property that way. I have a title company that's recognizing me that way, and I'm getting building permits with restricted signatures on them, and the building department treats me with kid gloves. They're very polite. With the restricted signature on the building permit, I explain who and what I am, and that I am contracting with them for them to come onto the property for limited time, limited use, limited purpose, to visually inspect that I am building equal to or greater than what they expect or would like to see me do.
And you know what I like about your program here is that, many programs, patriot movements in the past it always seems like the people were hiding from the government. They didn't want to get involved, but you're actually meeting them on equal terms and telling them who you are, and you're out there doing everything as a free man instead of a slave. And how does this benefit you? I mean, what benefits?
Well, you gotta look at it this way. Our country has to deal with other countries, and so we have to do so by treaties or contracts. And so you got to consider yourself as a sovereign from a different country than the corporate state is, and that you still have to do business with them. So how do you do that? And that's how I came about figuring all this out. Okay.
Right. So you're a free man doing business.
I still want to do business with the corporate state, but I want to do it with them giving acknowledgement of who and what I am, and I'm there specially, not generally.
Okay, good. Go ahead, continue.
And that is as simple as you can make it. Is that first? Let's get back on track to who and what we are. Get their court system to acknowledge that by these private court cases. Okay,
right.
Where you get it ordered and adjudged that your name is this, your capacity is this, your political standing is this, your domicile is this, and when you have those court orders in your hand, then you start doing business with them with restricted signatures and annexed affidavits, explaining you're there specially not generally there, and they are to recognize you, and you will recognize them. Now you can do business, okay?
And so now you're doing business just as you normally would, but in a manner that you choose. And psychologically, though, it also gives, just thinking about it, gives you a little bit of a good feeling, at least internally, you've gone through the steps that it takes. And you know what? This shows you how really they've bound us. By you getting out of this, Terry, you've spent a lot of years of your life taking the chains off, so to speak, in this very, very systematic manner. I commend you for that. But that's basically what it is. Don't you agree?
It took time to figure out what to do. And it's a simple thing. It's a whole different world here, and it's a whole different world here, and how do we do business with each other? It's like different countries do business with each other. Mm-hmm. And so that's what I concentrated on, is the paperwork and the vehicles to do business with this corporate state and still maintain my sovereign capacity, okay?
Yeah, and psychologically, that's a great feeling, I imagine.
It is. I have a lot of respect. The police know that I do not have a driver's license. In the learning process, I got pulled over 6 times, and only 3 of those times I got tickets. I went to court. They put special prosecutors in for me, took me out in the hall, and negotiated a settlement. And it's because I'm not from that system, and I've proven that.
And now, when you get stopped, you don't have a driver's license. I know that. What do you show them?
I don't have a driver's license because the word driver is a commercial term. I'm not in commerce, and so I've proven that in court. And our state Department of Licensing here in Washington has admitted in open court that they don't issue flesh and blood people a license. They create a 52 trust, all capital letter name. They issue it a license, then you sign the contract to be the subrogee of that fiction, that corporation that they create. And so they put all the property in the name of that fiction. You're the subrogee for that entity. When it says you own the property, ownership means just exclusive possession and exclusive use of their property. Okay?
Okay, now when you get stopped, I know you were stopped and you fought this, what do you show them? The police, when you...
show them the court orders that of who I am and what I am.
So you carry the court order with you showing that you don't need a driver's license?
No, it doesn't say that. It just says who I am.
Okay.
So what they have then is that I'm not a volunteer into their system. I am outside their system. I'm making use of their vehicle, but I give them notice because they have a little tape recorder on their lapel there, okay? I give them all the correct information, so when it comes time to go to court, then it's a different issue there than it is with the rest of the people, okay?
Okay.
A lot of the policemen won't write a ticket. They'll just say, I'm not writing a ticket, just be careful and all that. And the problem they also have is, well, they got a guy out there that may not have insurance. Well, flesh and blood people cannot get insurance. Nobody can. They only write insurance in the name of these state-created fictions, all capital letter names. You'll never get an insurance policy from any insurance agency with an upper lowercase sovereign name. You will not get one.
Okay, so how do you handle that?
Well, I put down an affidavit that I have notarized that states that I'm in compliance with their code on the issuance of financial responsibility. So all pleadings are considered the truth unless they're properly rebutted in law and in court. And so now I have a pleading in here. I'm in full compliance with everything. They got to overcome that.
Okay.
Why am I not in compliance? In our state, Washington, you're not technically required to have insurance until you're in an accident that causes $700 in damage to another party. They don't tell you that. They force everybody into insurance by threatening to haul them away or find them a ticket and everything. They don't have it, but the actual laws, when you read it, it actually states it. And even on the accident report for the State Patrol in Washington, it says $700 or more.
Okay, so there's a whole aspect to this that we're not going to get into today. We're going to come back one more segment. I want people to know how to get a hold of you. But there's this whole aspect about you forming a spiritual corporation, which is quite interesting. And that's a show we're going to do it, bring back, and I call him Professor Terry Lee. And that's what I call him, because I'll tell you what, it's a regular classroom experience when you talk with him. And it, folks, his system, if you're willing to spend the time, really has some benefits to it. And we'll get into some of those benefits and things at the next break here. We're going to take a break in a minute. Terry, can you just tell people how to get a hold of you? Phone number or anything?
Yeah, the phone number is 509-844-7856. That's the cell number. And you can't be a sovereign if you have a legal address, so my location is General Delivery, Loon Lake, Washington State.
So that's all you need. You don't have zip codes or anything like that?
If some of the people...
How does it get to you? Does it get you?
Well, if the postmaster does not want to do that, they want to put a zip code on it, put my name up at the upper left-hand corner and put my name in the center, and I guarantee you'll...
Today with, I call him Professor Terry Lee, telling us how to become a free man and not a slave. He does it in a very methodical, logical manner, and I am just amazed how you dot the I's and cross the T's in this program. And tell us, this new CD you have, which really goes over how to do this, how can people get it? Terry?
You get the CD from me, you mean, or?
Yeah.
Well, just send me a request and send $10. That's all it costs.
Okay, and is there a website? Do you have a website, or?
No, I don't.
Boy, you have to get this in. We're going to have to help you get this information out. People, just after I do a show, I get so many requests, and I just want to tell you that it's something that many people have always contacted me for, to get in touch with you. So I want to also...
Everything, I got a really good computerized friend that is putting everything, scanning everything onto a CD, and I'm going to get you a copy of that so that anybody can have it. So, I mean, I don't care how many people take it and make copies of it and hand it out to other people. That don't matter to me. It's just like other people, we want to get the information out. You know?
Now, these, I guess you have some court, some briefs and everything that go along with this. Is that included on the CD, or do you get those from you privately?
Some of them are, yeah. We're trying to get as many of them on there as we can. Like I say, this new CD's got twice as much information as the last one had on it. So.
Okay. Anything new come up since the last time we talked in your quest to? I know this is an ongoing, lifelong commitment. Is there anything new that you're battling now?
Well, what I'm trying to perfect is what we've been talking about: is how can you become a sovereign and still do business with the corporate state. So we're taking their forms, changing their forms. We're perfecting this annexed affidavit for our restricted signature. We're trying to get it down to where, yes, you're there, we recognize that, yes, you can still do business with it in this fashion. Okay. That's what we're after, because the national ID card is coming down the pike, and we want to perfect it to where they've got to give us an ID card that recognizes who we are, not who they say we are.
Okay. Good. And what about passports?
We're working on that. We haven't got that perfected yet, but how it used to be done years and years ago is that the passports were issued by the state as sovereign state citizens. Okay. So if we could just get copies of the original sovereign state citizen passports done back in the 1800s, and early 1900s, we could use that as a format, and you can do things by court order. So if you can prove that you're a sovereign, and go ahead, you should be able to get a judge to issue you a passport in that same capacity. Right?
So in the same way
that's what we're working on right now. We're working on passports because that's the next best thing. So.
Yeah, good idea. Again, why don't you give out your number so that people who want to get in touch with you can get a hold of you?
Okay, it's 509-844-7856.
Okay, Terry, we're all out of time. I want to thank you. We're going to have you on again for the second part of this, get into the spiritual corporations that you formed. And I want to thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that was Terry Lee.
Okay, we're back into 2019. And you know what? Terry, I did other interviews with him, and certain little interesting things about the driver's license, the Social Security card, and all these different little things you have to do. Because if you have one, they still got a hold of you. That's what I'm talking about, breaking each link in that chain of corporate citizenship to become a sovereign. And as you can see by listening to Terry, it's not an easy task. So before you venture into it, realize that the powers that be have created a system that is very, very difficult to opt out of. And if you want to, let me know. I'm going to go back and get another interview I did with Terry, and even try to check to see if I still have that CD he gave me regarding certain things you need to do. The first thing, though, that's important is that going into the county court in the county you live in and filing a non-adversarial case to get the judge to admit who you really are. And I had a long conversation with Terry regarding that meeting he had with the judge, and it's amazing that the judge agreed with him. And so you know you're onto something when you go into their system and you basically acknowledge who you really are, and they have no choice but to agree with you. So I hope you found that interesting. And if you have any questions, contact me at gregbeacon@gmail.com, and I can see if I can recover some of that stuff. Another simple way to get out is just to denounce your corporate citizenship and go somewhere else. See you later on The Investigative Journal.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.